a program at ECF. So we have two programs, the Action for Equality program and the Project RACE program. And we are going to be telling you a little bit about them, and we're also going to be talking about how COVID-19 has impacted our programs. But first, I'm going to just talk about why we work with boys and why we feel the need to work with boys on gender equality. So gender equality is always thought to be a woman's issue, and men think that gender equality initiatives negatively impact their lives, and they have little to gain from these initiatives. In fact, just like women and girls, men and boys also, in fact, just like they also have been affected by gender inequality. For instance, men are expected to be sole breadwinners of their families, or they're expected to choose particular types of careers. They're expected they're expected to protect women and girls, and then they've been told not to express their emotions. In fact, we've seen that men and boys who are from gender equitable societies are less likely to be depressed, they're less likely to commit suicide. In fact, adolescent boys also show less psychosomatic problems and are more likely to make more informed decisions in their life. So it is important that men and women come together, become allies, and find solutions to mitigate the problem of gender-based violence and discrimination. Because if we just empower women without changing the norms that govern behavior of both men and women, then it results in a lot of backlash and resistance, because women try to exercise their autonomy in hostile households, in hostile communities, and in hostile workplaces. So how do we engage boys and men to become agents of change? What we really need to do is what we have learned in ECF, that we need to positively and constructively engage with boys as collaborators and not look at them as perpetrators of violence. We need to work with them to find solutions to address gender-based violence. And then we need to motivate them by providing them knowledge and skills that is relevant in their lives. And for behavior transformation to take place, we need to support them at an individual level, at a household level, and community level. They need to feel safe and secure, and we need to use participatory methods of learning in which they can reflect and discuss with one another on issues of gender equality. And they need to learn through an action-based learning method such as games, debates, community participation. All this helps to promote, helps them to learn effectively and experience gender equality in their lives. So at ECF, we have adopted some of these principles in our Action for Equality programs. And Ria is going to be talking to you about our program and about ECF.
Thank you. So Equal Community Foundation has two programs, Action for Equality and Project RACE. Now through Action for Equality, our aim is to bring about gender transformative change in the attitudes and behaviors of adolescent boys. So we have weekly sessions for around 30 weeks for boys aged 13 to 17, where they learn how to critically think about and challenge gender norms, and to identify the effect of these norms in their own behavior, in their families, in their peer groups, in their schools and communities. We also try to give them the opportunity to build up certain skills like communication, leadership, so that they can lead and bring about gender equitable change. Now, in the past, participants have taken actions to prevent child marriage in their houses, in their communities. I'm so sorry, that was my cat. And also participants have taken action to prevent domestic violence in their households, to prevent child marriage in their communities. And they've also conducted what we call action events. These are public awareness events on a specific community issue, like street sexual harassment, like girls' education. Now, in the past couple of years, we also noticed that it was necessary for participants to coordinate with girls and women in their communities. So our participants, these teenage boys, have been conducting focus group discussions with girls and young women in their respective communities. Now, in these discussions, the girls, young women, and our participants identify a community specific gender issue, and then they think of ways to mitigate these issues. So they work together to address a gender based issue. Our second program is Project Trace. Now, through Project Trace, we try to bring about a social sectoral change whereby the social sector prioritizes including men and boys in gender equitable programs. Now, through Project Trace, we build the capacity of nonprofits all throughout India so that they can implement their own pilot versions of Action for Equality. Now, our Action for Equality curriculum and our evaluation tools are all open source through Project Trace. And we also provide specific training so that our Action for Equality can be sort of modified to different states in India. So India is a very diverse country, and to different focus areas, such as if a NGO works in health, how can we switch Action for Equality to include that? Now, our most recent achievement with Project Trace has been that we have been training government school teachers to implement this program in schools all throughout India. We're doing this in collaboration with UNESCO and the International Center for Research on Women. Now, for more on the impact of Action for Equality, Sudakshana, I'd like to talk about that.
Am I audible now?
Now
Yes.
it's good.
Yeah, thank you. So sorry. Yeah, so my name is Sudakshana, and so I am basically going to talk about the impact, but more than giving some rough figures about what has been the impact, I think I'm going to take you through a few stories from our communities. So when we talk about impact, we do understand that it doesn't come in a year or two, and it takes like about a few years or a decade to bring about a particular change. So after the boys complete the Action for Equality program, we actually have seen vast attitudinal and behavioral shift among these boys. So like from breaking gender stereotypes to challenging different norms, different gender norms and taboos to support women in the journey of gender equality, these boys, they have actually evolved through the program. So likewise, we have this young participant, Aniket, from one of our communities. Now, when we were having a informal discussion with Aniket's mother, she actually narrated a very different side of her son. So in the school where Aniket studies, students were offered to take up a course either on either an electrician course or a beautician course. Now, as expected, most girls took up the beautician course and the boys opted for electrician course. Our participant, Aniket, of course, he was not quite comfortable with the idea. He came back home and he spoke with his parents that he is more inclined towards taking up the beautician course. Now, when he was asked with questions like, why do you want to take up this course? This is a course for girls. So he actually went ahead and gave examples of different male members, different male makeup artists who have actually taken up the courses and are successful in their individual career. So finally, he could convince his parents, go back to his school, convince his teachers, because that took a lot of convincing. And finally, he completed the course and got a certificate. Now, throughout this time, when Aniket's mother was narrating this story, she was really proud that her son could, take up something different than other children of his batch. And she was just narrating to us that, on one such local festival, how her son had done her makeup and hairstyle, and she could actually flaunt that to other women. So that little change, it might sound really little, but for a 13 or a 14-year-old, that is quite a lot. Then we do have other boys who challenge menstrual taboos and talk about it quite openly. So we have another boy called Ganesh, and during one of his interactions with his school friends, with his peers, his teachers actually were not quite comfortable because he was talking about menstrual taboos and what are the issues that women face during that time. And boys of that age, adolescent age, they usually don't talk about it. So teachers were also not quite comfortable. Now Ganesh came back to his mentor and he took his support to how to convince others that these are the topics one needs to talk about openly. And he went back. He spoke with his teachers, class teacher, and a few peers that these are some things we need to talk about quite freely because there's no shame in it. It's a natural process. It's a biological process. We actually need to understand what women go through during the 4-5 days of the month. What are the social taboos associated to it? Because so in most of our communities, I mean, it's quite common in Indian households that women are made to sit separately while you're menstruating, or you cannot eat with others. So these are some taboos that Ganesh identified, and he started talking about it with his peers, with his female friends, with his parents, and slowly he's trying to break such stigma. So yeah, as I was saying, that there has been a lot of shift, especially so as Aisha was mentioning in the beginning, that boys are expected, or men are expected, to protect women. But once these boys, they graduate from the program, or when they start learning about different human rights, they do come up and say that women shouldn't be protected. There should be a dialogue in case we can have a positive dialogue whether the woman wants my help or not. I shouldn't just go about protecting everyone thinking I'm like I am the mascot of protectionism. Then they do start talking about different rights, whether it is the rights for everyone to work freely, earn money for themselves, whether it is the right for everyone to play with what they want, because most of the times boys are not encouraged to play with dolls or so-called toys which girls are given. But these boys, they have actually come up a long way, and they could say that I mean, I want to break certain norms, and they are on the process of doing that. Yeah, those were the two stories I wanted to talk about. And as we know that COVID had a large impact on most of our communities, in fact, on all of our communities. So Aisha, would you like to talk about the impact which COVID had on us in the recent few months? Thank
Yes.
you.
Hi. Action for Equality is primarily a community-based program. So we hold our sessions in the community. We encourage boys to take community-level action so that they're not only learning about gender equality, they're also experiencing it. However, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we had to bring about changes in our Action for Equality program. We could not do community sessions anymore. So we shifted to an online version. We had to do it remotely. And because of that, we changed our content. So the content of our sessions actually expanded to include COVID-19 awareness, as well as discussions on how certain types of gender-based violence and discrimination increases in such circumstances. And we also provided boys ways and means to, if they come across such situations, how to mitigate these situations. We provided them with solutions. If they see gender-based violence and discrimination, such as sexual abuse or domestic violence happening in their communities, what can they do in such circumstances? So we included all of that in our sessions, and our sessions were held online. So these were the primary big changes that we had to do in our Action for Equality program. We also learned when we were during the pandemic, we also learned that our community members faced a lot of problems. They were having a lot of problems. So we decided to do a needs awareness to understand what the issues our community members were facing. In fact, Sudakshna was involved in these community needs assessments, and she's going to tell you a little bit more about what actually happened and what they found.
Yeah, thanks, Aisha. So as Aisha mentioned, we conducted a basic needs assessment with about 304 residents of our communities, of our Action for Equality communities. So basically we did that in order to understand the needs and issues within the community during the COVID pandemic time. The immediate needs that came up were for ration and food. There was a scarcity of that. Economic opportunities, or rather livelihood opportunities, because most of these parents, the parents of our participants, they had lost their livelihood in the process. A few of them were actually daily wage earners, and they had to come back from the places where they were engaged in to their native town, and they did not have any work at hand. Education was a primary need at that time, because all the schools and colleges had closed down, and our boys were more, they were only, they could only do online classes, and a few of them also did not have stable internet connection or a smartphone. So then what would be the alternate solution, or how can they get a support? That was a need that came up. And of course, health facilities, because most of them were worried that although they were not affected directly, many of them, but they were in the containment zones. So people in their neighborhood were affected, and they did not know what would be the next step altogether. So yeah, health facilities were definitely a concern at that time. That came up as a need. So as a team from ECF, we actually took a few actions to mitigate these kind of needs. So home visits were undertaken by our field team, by the Action for Equality team, for raising an awareness for for COVID-19, I'm sorry, and as well as to understand what kind of discussions could be done with the community people related to the pandemic. We also distributed some ration kits and personal protective equipment kits within the communities. We did that in collaboration with another organization. We conducted sessions, online sessions on mental health and domestic violence with adults. So adult men and adult women were involved in it, and all those were online webinars. We also conducted a session on child sexual abuse with the our participants, and a few selected girls from the community as well. And all these were done online, and they were very effective. And they were done in collaboration with some other organizations, these webinars. So as Aisha was again mentioning in the beginning, that our alumni and participants took some actions during the COVID time. I think she'll be able to tell us more about it. Over to you, Aisha.
Yeah. So despite the COVID-19 pandemic, our participants actually took actions in the community to help with COVID relief and awareness. In fact, our boys below the age of 18 took more household level and online actions. For instance, they made sure that everybody in their households, there was equal distribution of work with regard to household chores. They discussed issues of gender-based violence and discrimination with their families, and they also helped to improve relationships within their families. So brother-sister relationships, or they started talking more to their fathers. In fact, they started also spreading awareness on the prevention of COVID-19. So encouraging people to wear masks, keeping a distance of 6 feet amongst themselves. And also washing hands, which is a priority in the communities. Also, then they also distributed referral numbers to individuals. So especially to individuals who are suffering from mental health issues, or who face domestic violence issues or sexual abuse in their homes. Our boys who were above the age of 18 took more active role in the COVID-19 relief work in their communities. For example, they started distributing, they helped us in distributing food kits, ration kits, personal protective equipment kits to their members. Then they helped to get essential food items to help vulnerable members in their communities. And they did this through crowdfunding and also by contacting relevant organizations. They help to spread awareness of how to prevent COVID-19 in their communities. Again, like boys earlier, they help to connect individuals to helpline numbers and organizations if they were suffering from mental health and domestic violence. And they also conducted tuition classes for children in their communities. Because of the lockdowns and because of the instability of the internet, a lot of children could not go to school. So our boys conducted classes for them. They had book exchanges, textbook exchanges, so that they didn't miss out on a year of learning. So these were some of the actions our boys took in the communities. With regard to our Project Race program, we had to make changes in that program as well. And Ria will tell you a little bit more what happened in the Project Race program and what changes we actually made to that program.
Thanks, Aisha. So before the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, our Project Race program consisted of in-person training for the employees of nonprofits all across India. So obviously this was a lot of group exercises and a lot of national travel. Now from March 25th onwards, it was impossible for us to travel out of whichever city we were in. And after that, once travel opened, the city we are in actually has the highest COVID-19 numbers in India. And India has the second highest COVID-19 numbers in the world. So obviously travel is still not advisable. Now, the second issue we have is that the nonprofits we collaborate with, our partners, work for marginalized communities across India, and the COVID-19 effects we discussed above, the infection rates, the eco-social impact, domestic violence, unemployment, mental health, are present in marginalized communities all throughout India. So our partners are also trying to focus on COVID-19 relief. And hence our program has been sort of suspended even for the communities where field action has started already. Now, what we have done to manage these issues is that we've switched to online training webinars for our partners. We've also switched to online collaborations where we discuss the need to engage boys and men with other organizations. So we're trying to form a network. And for partners who work with populations that have consistent internet access, we have been designing online curriculums. For instance, with UNESCO and the International Center for Research on Women, we've been training teachers in government schools. And then they implement our program through online training webinars with their students. So that has been the major change in Project Race, basically a switch to online mechanisms wherever possible. Now, while the COVID-19 pandemic has caused a lot of issues, both our partner organizations, we personally, as well as our alumni and participants, are working for COVID-19 relief. So illustrate this work, Sudakshana is just going to close with a little story about what our participants are doing.
Yeah, thanks, Ria. So I'm just going to focus on one particular story of a 13-year-old boy. So his name is Atharva. He's from one of our communities in Pune. And during the COVID-19, when COVID-19 struck, he was just in the 8th standard. And of course, after the pandemic breaking out, schools, colleges, offices, factories, they were all shut down. And this little boy, Atharva, would stay indoors for almost the entire day. His studies were hampered. His parents, like his mother is a housewife, but his father used to work in a factory which also closed down, and they suffered financially at that time. Now, as he was staying indoors, he took up some additional household responsibility to help out his parents in works like cleaning the house, to sweep floor, or in making tea. And one fine evening when they were all sitting together and having tea and watching the news, he realized that the number of deaths were increasing, were going on the higher side due to the virus. And he also realized that it is really important not to just wear masks, but also to understand the correct way of wearing masks, cleaning them regularly, maintaining the proper hygiene. So that was one thing he realized. That was probably in the mid of July. Now, on the first week of August, he had his birthday. He had his 13th birthday, when he got some cash as a gift from some family members and elders to buy something of his choice. He had other plans, of course. So what he did is he saved up the money, and he had about 320 rupees in Indian currency, and he bought 70 masks with it. So he distributed the masks from door to door in his community. And not only that, he also went to them explaining the usage of masks and the proper way of using masks, and of course the importance of maintaining hygiene, washing hands, using sanitizers. So he did an entire event all by himself. So while we were asking him what exactly he could go and say, because he's just a 13-year-old whom mainly most of the seniors wouldn't pay heed to, so he actually said that if you want to fight this pandemic, if you want to be safe and keep your family secured, you have to wash hands, use sanitizers, maintain all the protocol that is being told to do. So why I decided to bring this story to you is because many a times we have a lot of things in excess, and we feel that once we are secured with our things, then we can go out and help others, give things which probably others will need, but we don't need at that particular time. But Atharva, being a little 13-year-old boy with a limited fund of 320 rupees that he had, with his family already struggling of some financial troubles at that time, he did not think of anything else. He actually went out and thought that when people needed masks or other such, even a little awareness, even a little word of advice, he actually could go and deliver them at the doorstep. So that was really a proud moment when we heard from him what he did. And I think we at ECF, we are really proud of Atharva and boys like Atharva who really exist and are trying to meet both ends. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, so we'd like to thank Gofil for giving us the opportunity to do this. We hope we've managed to give you a comprehensive introduction to why we work with Voice for Gender Equity and what it is that we do. And thank you, Linda and Travis, especially for organizing this. So if you have any further questions, then please feel free to contact us through our website. Our email ID is there. Again, thank you so much.
Thank you. Aisha?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful, wonderful presentation. And what a way to end, talking about these very personal stories and how it's impacted a program like ECF and so many, all of our other partners impact lives, and how one person can truly make a difference. That's just a wonderful way to end. So thank you again so much. Well, this has been an amazing live broadcast, really fun. First time we've done it, and went really well, I think. With thanks to all of our amazing partners and the team at GoPhil put this together, specifically Travis, Maydeen, Allegra, Emily. Thank you so much. And we're really looking forward to hearing more from you. We'd love to hear your questions you may have, comments, observations about our partners, the program, etc. And you can see how challenged our partners have been, particularly right now in India and Nepal, I think, where it's really, the COVID is really raging. That to manage what they need to do with COVID, which is around basic elements of food and shelter and that kind of thing, along with managing their programs and figuring out, again, innovative ways to do that. Sometimes, for example, in the community rather than in a center or whatever it might be, is really very inspiring. So our goals for this particular program were to shed a light on issues in our programs, what they're doing, the amazing, brave work they're doing, raise awareness and hopefully inspire you in some ways, If you find yourself wanting to support these efforts in some ways, and we would encourage, share the campaign we have, this Giving Tuesday campaign with your network, your networks. Go on to gofil.org, .com, which is travel.org, which is the foundation. And look, we have a monthly giving program, a Go Impact program, all really focused on helping our partners sustain their work. So it's not this, we're not in this for the short haul. We're in it for the long game with our partners. And we want to be sure we do that, especially around their really immediate needs for staffing, support with staffing. So I think that's about all we want to say. We wish you well. We're very fortunate to be part of this really wonderful, magnanimous GoFil community. And again, we thank you all, and thanks for joining us this evening or this morning, depending on where you are. So bye, signing off.
Bye, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, bye.